Welcome back to the next session for Align 2017, the virtual summit that is dedicated to all things B2B sales and marketing alignment. I'm Jeremy Boone, Director of Marketing at Ambition, and we're interviewing this week 50 of the best and brightest minds, consultants, experts, and practitioners across B2B sales and marketing to see how they help teams align for growth across their front office. So my guest today is a guy I've actually done one or two interviews with before in the past, and I know very well. Jake Jorgovan, the creator of Outbound Creative, and the guy who literally does this for his job, helps teams create excellent B2B sales and marketing plans. So Jake, welcome to Aligned, and very excited to chat with you today and get your insights.
Thanks for having me on here, Jeremy.
My pleasure. And you've got a great background with working at a number of different startups, and I think now you've been doing your own gig here for 3 or 4 years. So you've seen a lot. Start off by telling people who you are, what your background is, and what you're doing with Outbound Creative.
Yeah, so my entire background in my whole business currently, my consultancy, is really focused around helping agencies and consultants win their dream clients. And the way that I got into this is actually I owned a video agency several years ago that I had with a partner, and his entire side of the business was all executing the work, leading our team, working with all the designers, actual executing and delivering on everything. And my side was actually really building up the sales, getting us the work, and building up that side of our business. And so, after doing that for several years, I got us to the point where we were landing several Fortune 500 clients. We were working with some of the biggest events in the industry. And eventually, when we split ways, I decided to start focusing on doing that for other people as well. And so what I really found is that, there's so many agencies or consulting companies out there who are great at the doing the work side of things. They're great at delivering their services, but they struggle to build their sales teams, or they struggle to get any sort of predictable process or even aligned on what they're trying to achieve. And so that's where I really come in and help with a lot of those companies in terms of getting new clients in the door for their business in a predictable way.
Excellent. That's a great distillation, man. And can I guess you start by telling people, when these people are coming to you and you're the companies you're working with, what are some of the main problems and issues on a more micro level you're seeing that need fixing within how they're going out and getting clients?
I think the biggest thing that I see is just simply how many companies don't have a clearly defined buyer persona of who they're even going after. That is it's a fundamental, very basic thing. But just getting very clear about, who it is you're targeting, what makes a company a good fit, what makes them not a good fit. And then figuring out, what is the goal? Like, what are you even trying to accomplish with this? Do you need, 100 new clients? Do you need 5? I think so many companies just go out there and they say, okay, we just want more business, we want growth, but they're not really clear, and that kind of can create really unclear expectations with the team when someone feels like they got to be doing everything, when really if they signed 3 new accounts this quarter, they'd be pretty happy. So I think just getting really clear on who that buyer persona is, and then setting clear expectations and goals that are realistic, I think is, probably some of the biggest things I've just seen in terms of alignment and getting teams focused in that right direction.
Sure. And so let's start diving into that then. How do the best agencies, how are they defining their ICPs from what you've seen, and what's working, and what are some great strategies that you've seen put in action and be very successful in the agency space?
Yeah, so in terms of in defining that, one of the biggest things that I would say is just getting very clear, or trying to write out your ideal client profile based off of what your some of your best past clients are. And I think that's probably one of the best places for people to start, is take a look at your entire client list, look at your top accounts, and start to try to distill, okay, why are they such good accounts? Is it about the people that we're working with? Is it about the company size, their industry? Try to figure out what are those criteria that make them a good account. And then also start to try to distill, okay, Why did they buy from me? That's the other thing. So why did this company choose to buy? Is it because they had a certain triggering event? Were they going through some sort of change, some sort of organizational shift that led to them needing to hire you? Get answering all of those questions and just thinking through your client's situation in as much detail as possible, and just trying to put yourself inside of their head, even going to the point of asking the question of, what were they thinking about when they came to buy you? Were they looking for you as a solution provider? Did they interview lots of vendors? Like, how do they even think about your problem? And just trying to articulate and write out that story as clearly as you can, and just get inside your prospect's head and write that all out. I think is probably just, it's a really powerful exercise, and it gets the whole team aligned just around, a core profile. And when you can even just tie that always back to saying, hey, we want another client X, and you're literally trying to replicate a client that you already have, it just helps make it a lot more simpler, as opposed to, I think sometimes even with buyer personas, people get a little abstract with it, or they struggle to see it in real life. But even just tying that back to trying to replicate more of the kind of clients you have is another great simple way to align if you don't have the ability to go through or the time to go through the whole exercise as well.
Great, and that's something that I've heard repeated throughout a lot of the sessions we're doing for this, man. And something we practice here is just get to intimately know your clients. Very cool. And so from there, let me go then to goals. You talked about that and figuring out what your goals are as an agency and how to define growth goals and align your teams around those. How do agencies do that? And are there like guiding principles that can work across all shapes and sizes of them?
Yeah, so then as terrible as it is, most companies that I come across aren't even setting any sort of goal. And so just first of all, figuring out, what are your goals, not just in terms of revenue, but, what's the ideal? Are you guys trying to sell this? Are you trying to scale the sales team? Are you just trying to stabilize cash flow? Are you trying to, figuring, are you wanting, just a few more great clients, or are you wanting to scale up 100? Like figuring out, like thinking big picture about what those goals are is really kind of the first step, like the longer term. And then really starting to try to distill that down into like, okay, what are some goals for the upcoming year? And trying to put some sort of revenue goal in place. And I think a lot of people automatically think, okay, I've got to make like some huge ambitious revenue goal, or I've got to make some really big targets that, like, that's what we're told, dream big and think big and all that. But there's something that I heard on an interview between Tim Ferriss and Chase Jarvis that really shifted my perspective, was when they talked about setting super small, easy to accomplish goals that make you feel like you're winning. And after years of always setting these way over ambitious goals that were way too hard to accomplish, I started working with companies and just saying, okay, let's set something really small where, like, we're making, if we've hit this goal, we're at least moving forward. Like, that's just like a small step forward. And that's at least better than moving backwards or like not getting any sales. But say, let's get 2 new accounts this quarter or something very simple. And that way, if you get above that and you go above and beyond and you over deliver, then you're super happy and you're feeling good and you feel like you've got momentum. But becomes this kind of like psychological negativity if you're just chasing all these goals and you're always falling short. And even if you had a really good quarter, if you're still 50 grand short of your revenue goal, but you're still growing, like, it just gets people down. So trying to set small, easy to achievable goals is probably one of the biggest things that I've seen that has helped motivate a lot of teams and keep them all aligned in the same direction as they're moving forward.
Yeah, and that's a pillar of ambition right there. Is you have the big goal, but then you have SMART goals, if you will. I believe those are specific, measurable, I believe actionable, realistic, and time constrained, I believe, are the 5 for that. So that's the whole purpose of those is, getting, as you're trying to progress towards that big goal, you're obviously going to be making small micro progressions, and you should be benchmarking and celebrating and creating positive feedback based on those progressions. So that's what's going to ultimately, like you said, drive you forward. And I think that's a great point, man. So what are some companies you've worked with that are doing that well? And how can they implement that in a more tangible way in their organization?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the companies I'm working with is this software development agency, Darwin Apps, and I mean, as we've implemented it, it's just kind of taken a focus of everyone just having, what are the goals, like what are the objectives that we're trying to really reach this quarter and beyond, and it takes, especially when you're dealing with like smaller companies, it takes a lot of it's not always as clear cut or as easy because you've got so many more roles, or maybe it's not just new sales, but you've also got someone who's like the customer success team who's trying to expand existing revenue. So it's all very much trying to just figure out what are the bigger picture company goals, and then outlining each person's individual responsibilities toward accomplishing that. So just we outline that very clearly on where everyone's handling that, what's their specific metrics that they're measured on, and that keeps them focused, and just kind of stick toward that. And each week in our stand-ups, just kind of checking in on where we're at with our metrics.
That's a great distillation, man. And I know with Ambition, one of the things our clients do is they take each different role in their team, and maybe based on office, other various aspects, and they set daily activity goals. Could be calls, could be emails, it could be other stuff. They also could set holistic goals, and those are just meant to say, okay, here you go. If you do this, you're having a good day, and you had a good day. You hit these small micro goals. You didn't maybe hit this crazy revenue goal. You didn't close a huge deal, but you got closer to doing that, and you're moving down the path. I love it. And so how do teams from a leadership standpoint then, I guess inside the agencies you've seen, how's the leadership working together to drive alignment? And how are you working with them as a consultant coming in to help ensure long-term success?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it all just comes down to metrics, and just staying focused on the metrics is probably one of the biggest things that keeps people aligned and focused on the right things. Because it's so easy to get distracted by 1,000,001 projects whenever you're looking at marketing, where you're like, oh, we could be doing this, or we could be doing this. And it's always easy to spin something else up. But knowing when you're measured by metrics, it really just keeps you focused on the specific core things that are actually going to move the business forward. So that's probably the number one thing right there. With a lot of my clients, where we take and we look at, who are all the customers that recently signed, and then what actual activity led to them. How did we actually run into that client? And when you start to do that over a year's past, and you actually start to track the source of every single one of those, that gets to some really insightful data of, okay, what's actually working? Because a lot of times people are just doing all this stuff, and like maybe one thing is like, it's the 80-20 rule. One thing's actually producing all the results, even though they're trying all these other things. And if they just cut out all the other junk and they focused on the one thing that actually was producing all the results even more, they could just amplify their efforts. So just doing that exercise of looking at all your best customers and analyzing how you actually got them has been another really useful exercise as well. I just would start by looking at, okay, just like who are the top 20% of clients you have, and just starting there, and just like saying, if we had more customers just like this, everything would be great. And then just figuring out how, and just looking back at your entire trajectory with them, if you need to look through the CRM or figuring all that out. But I mean, with most of the companies I work with, that's not too hard to grasp or understand, but just, figuring out who those top customers are, and then just looking retrospectively and at how you actually started that interaction.
Gotcha. To hammer home, what's the number one most impactful alignment strategy you've seen being adopted for agency teams?
Yeah, I would just say setting clear, measurable goals, and then using metrics to stay focused on accomplishing those.
I love it. Simple, straightforward. And
awesome.
I love it, man. I think that's the name of the game. Goal-based culture. That's one of the things that we preach here as well. So this has been great. Jake, can you tell people now how they can contact you, how they can learn more about Outbound Creative? You've got a podcast and you produce great content. Tell them where they can find that stuff as well.
Yeah, so you can find out more at outboundcreative.com about my agency and the outreach work we do for other clients to help them win their dream clients. And then I also do a lot of blogging and all of my content at jake-jorgovan.com. And there you've got links to my own podcast, my blogs, a new podcast I'm launching, which you have recently been on as well. And all the jake-jorgovan.com is the main hub for everything.
Absolutely, man. Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to catching that. And everybody, thank you for attending this session for Align 2017. Jake, thank you for being a part of it, man. It's been great.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Jeremy.